All right, guys. So what is wholesaling, right? Like what actually is it? From a high level, all right, from the top level, wholesaling is a strategy to transact real estate. And it's a way to do it very quickly. But like, what are the mechanics, right? Like how do you actually produce a deal? So this is what it looks like. So number one, wholesaling is finding an investment house. Okay. So you have to be able to find the house. How you do that, there's a variety of ways, which we'll talk later, but you got to source the deal. You got to find the house. Number two is you have to analyze the numbers. You have to run them, and you've got to make sure it falls into what an investor would buy. It's got to fall into a specific strategy. Okay. We'll get into those strategies later, but you want to analyze the numbers and make sure the numbers work. Three, you need to put the property under contract. Now, when you put it under contract, there's two things that are important when you put it under contract. One, you have to have a good contract that gives you an inspection period to be able to back out of the deal. And you want to limit your risk. A lot of people will talk about putting a clause in there saying it's subject to partner's approval. You can avoid all this by just doing an inspection. Okay, just do an inspection. And if you're not able to complete the deal, you can cancel the contract within your inspection period for whatever reason. But if you want to put an additional clause in that paperwork, it's subject to buyer approval. And that just is a catch-all that allows you to cancel the contract in the event you can't perform or you can't find a buyer. Okay. So number one is the contract and the paperwork. And number two is negotiating with the seller. We're going to get into negotiating with the seller much later on and what it looks like to build rapport. But you negotiate with the seller because you're meeting with them directly most of the time in the wholesaling strategy. You're not going through a third party or an agent. But you want to put that property under contract with the right contract, and you want to negotiate with the seller to be a deal that fits the numbers above. Number four is now you're going to take that contract that you have and you are going to sell your rights to that contract to an investor buyer or a cash buyer that either has their own cash, they have private funding, or they have what's called hard money funding, which is basically just cash for investment properties. Okay. And then the fifth thing is you're going to close on the transaction at a title company. The title company is going to handle all the paperwork. They're going to handle all the closing. So what does this look like? So I had a deal. It was on 35th Street in Galesburg, Michigan. I reached out to the seller via cold calling, and we put the property under contract for $59,900. Okay, so that's what we put it under contract for with the seller. The inspection period for the property was 30 days. I communicated that we needed to get into the house 3 times. Okay, so it was 30 days. We could get in, we could inspect the property 3 times, and then we were supposed to close with an additional 30 days. So we had 60 days to close, 30 days to do an inspection. I went out and I find a cash buyer. He's actually in the program. He's a guy that I've helped for a few years now. He's bought a few properties from me as well. Jamari owns Bogan Investments. I reached out to him. I said, hey, Jamari, I have this property over here in Galesburg. And he looked at the property and he made me an offer for the contract. And that full price was $94,000. Okay, so $94,000. The closing time frame for him was 14 days, so he had 2 weeks to close. And the terms was that he had to either have his own cash or have hard money. Now, Jamari had hard money on the deal, but he had it. We filled out an assignment contract. The assignment assigns my rights to buy the property on 35th to Jamari. We assigned the contract over to him for the fee, which was the difference between the 94 and the 59. And then he had to secure that form with a deposit. And that deposit he made, I believe on that one was $3,000. That's typical. It's $3,000 or $5,000. On that one, he did $3,000, I believe. He had 14 days to close. Well, in that transaction, the difference between $59,900 and 94, it's about 30 something thousand dollars, 32. I don't know the exact math. I didn't write it down. It's about $32,000. So now I take that paperwork, I send it to a title company. We use a title company called Owner's Title. The owner is Nate Reinstrom, really great guy. You send it to the title company, the original contract and the assignment, and the title company handles all the paperwork. They process the deal. They make sure that they have the rights to sell it. The seller has the right to sell it. They make sure the buyer has the capability to buy it. And they work as a third party to represent nobody, to just be a neutral third party. They handle all the finances. They handle all the money. They handle the deposit. They handle all of it. So that way you don't have any liability in this transaction. And it gives you credibility with both your seller and your buyer that you're using a legitimate title company. Now, what they do is they handle all the paperwork. They record the transaction with the county to make sure title changes hands. And they handle all the funds, and they will disperse the funds. So at closing, on closing day, Jamari comes in. He wires in his $94,000 plus his closing costs. Then the title company holds that. The seller comes in, signs the paperwork. When everything is signed, they record the transaction with the county to make sure the ownership goes to Jamari. And then they disperse the funds. The seller gets their $59,900, and I get the difference. And that was a deal that we did. We just closed on that one 2 months ago. Okay, so very, very recent with that transaction. But that's a $30,000 deal that took us less than 30 days from calling, connecting, and doing it. That's the power of wholesaling, right? That's the power of wholesaling. So how do you make money? So there's 3 ways to make money. One of them I mentioned in that example. Okay, there's 3 ways to make money. One is assigning your rights for a fee of your contract with the seller to a buyer. Okay, just like we did with the 35th Street example. I assigned my rights to Jamari. Okay, and Jamari was able to close on the property. He closed on it. And then when at closing, I got a check. Okay, number 2 is you can do what's called a back-to-back close or a double close. Now, what that looks like is you are actually buying the property on the front end, and then you turn around and you're selling immediately to a buyer on the back end. So I put the property under contract with the seller, and then I put the property under contract with a buyer, 2 separate agreements. I close on this transaction, and then I turn around and I sell it to him immediately. Now, you might be saying, well, I don't have the funds to pay cash for $60,000. You don't always need the funds. There's a couple different ways that can happen. Some title companies in some states, I'm not sure where you guys are at, will actually allow you to use your end buyer's funds to close your transaction so you never have to bring the money to the table. Now, the con of this is it's a high cost, right? They're going to charge you to do it. But you can use the end buyer's money to fund your first transaction, and then you can sell it to the end buyer, and the title company will process all of it. If the title company is unwilling to do that, a lot of title companies are starting not to do that anymore. If they're unwilling, you can go out and there's what they call transactional funding. Transactional funding will fund your deal for you for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, depending on the purchase price. So you go out and get a transactional funder. They'll fund your property for 24 or 48 hours, and they'll charge you $3,000 to $4,000 to be able to buy the property, hold it for a day, turn around and sell it to your end buyer. And now you're able to do a double close. Okay. And then the third way to make money is what we call wholesaling. Okay. In the industry. Now, wholesaling is very interesting. Wholesaling is being able to do it very quick. Wholesaling is when you actually buy the property, you get a real estate agent, and you put it up on the market. Okay. So you found the wholesale deal, and now you just want to retail it on the market. So you take it down. What we call, you actually purchase the property, you hold it, and then you list it on the market for a higher fee. So the question would be like, why would I do these different strategies? Like, what's the difference, Ronnie? Come on. Well, so typically a wholesaling fee is somewhere between $8,000 and $25,000. Okay, if you're $8,000 to $25,000, typically you're just going to assign your rights to the paperwork. Now, the pro is you literally sign your rights away and you can close, and it's a very quick transaction, and you don't need any money. The con is that everybody sees how much you make, right? So if you're trying to assign $100,000 profit, people might get a little weird that you're making 100 grand on the seller and the buyer might not even be making that much, right? So people can get a little weird. So the con is everyone can see what you're doing. Now, double closing, the pro is, you come in, you purchase it. The pro is they don't normally see it, right? Nobody sees what you're making. It's two separate transactions. So on a double close, it's typically properties that you're making over $25,000, right? You might be making $32,000. You might be making $40,000 because you negotiated well with the seller. You want to double close that property, okay? You want to double close that deal because when you double close it, you're closing with this transaction, you're turning around and closing, and it really just keeps people honest, right? It keeps people not getting too greedy, too envious, too scared, and it allows for you to just negotiate the numbers with both. If they're happy with their price and they're happy with their price, no one's getting upset because you're making more money, because you did your job well. And then the third one is wholesaling. Typical price on wholesaling is something that's over $50,000, in my opinion. People have different thoughts, but anything over $50,000 that you're going to make is worth you buying, holding it, dealing with the fees, dealing with the holding costs, getting private money or hard money, holding the property, and turn around and listing on the market. Now, the benefit here is you're actually investing in real estate, right? You're buying it, you believe in this property, and then you're listing it up on the market for another investor or for someone else in the market that can live in the property. And these are much larger transactions. And so the benefit is you're going to make over $50,000 on a transaction that way. So those are the three ways in wholesaling that you can make money. Those are the three strategies that as you start going out there that you have in your tool belt, right? It's like Batman. It's like, hey, I need a grappling hook. Boom. And you're able to do it. Here's your three strategies: assignments, double closes, and wholesale. And as you're moving forward in this business, you will adapt and you will add more strategies, right? Wholesaling is a great option to get into real estate and to make money quickly. So what does that closing process look like? A lot of people ask me when they get started, Ronnie, where's the money go? How does it work? So this is how the closing process works. It's very, very simple. Number one, you get a contract with your seller. You take the contract and you send it to your title company. Let's say that contract is $100,000. You send a $100,000 contract to the title company. They take it. They start processing it. You go out. You then find a buyer who will buy that contract from you and that house for $110,000. And you assign your rights from that contract to the buyer for $10,000. And then you take that paperwork and you send it to the title company. Well, now the title company will have two sets of paperwork. The title company will see, oh, you assigned the property for $10,000. And they will put that on the closing statement. The title company will finish the paperwork. The seller will come in, they will sign. The buyer will come in and they will sign. And then the title company will disperse the funds and you will get the difference of $10,000. It's very, very simple. You send it to the title company and they handle everything. Isn't that amazing? It's so sweet. It's like super, super cool. So this is what it looks like. So what are the benefits of wholesale? Okay, I want to drill this in because you have to get this. If you're going to move forward in this industry, this is why wholesaling is beneficial to you. Okay, this is why you got into even opening and thinking about this. Is the number one benefit to you for learning how to wholesale is you can make large chunks of money very, very quickly. If you're in real estate and you're flipping deals and you're like, yo, I'm jumping in this to learn wholesaling, the benefit to you is you can get your profits on a property very, very quickly, a lot of times in under 30 days. All right. So when you learn this strategy, you are making money in less than 30 days. If you're rehabbing houses, that could be 3 months, that could be 6 months, that could be even longer, depending on the market cycle that we're in. And so it's a longer time frame. Where wholesaling, you get the money now. You get the money in 30 days. If you need $10,000, you can make that in 30 days. You can make it very, very quickly. Number two is wholesaling. You have little to no personal risk. Okay. There is a little bit of risk operating in business in general, but there's a little to no risk. You're not buying the property. You're not rehabbing the property. You're not managing contractors. You're not putting it on the market and having to worry about where the market's going. You're not having to worry about so many factors. What you need to worry about is how to find the deal and then how to find the buyer and to make sure you have a good deal. So there's little to no personal risk on your side, right? You jump in, you can make money very quickly, and there's little to no risk. Like those are the two biggest benefits. The third benefit is it's the easiest way that I know of, that Ronald knows of, to make $15,000 a month. Okay. You can make 8 to 15 grand a month. You can make potentially up to 25 grand a month, depending on the deal, but you can do 10 deals a year and make 6 figures. That's the first goal, is to get to that 6-figure mark, right? You can do it part-time, which is another benefit here. You can do it part-time, but you can make literally $10,000. You can make $15,000 per month with one transaction. We're not talking about scaling and making millions of dollars and getting rich quick, but we are talking about learning a skill that gives you freedom, learning a skill that gives you comfort, that like, oh man, if I go out and do this for 10 hours a week, I might be able to make, now I can't promise you, but you might be able to make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 at 10, 15, 20 hours a week. You do that, you make 6 figures in 10 months, 11 months, 12 months by doing a small fraction of your time, the work it takes that you would normally do in a job that you make $45,000 a year at. So that's a massive benefit to you guys, is you can make 6 figures. It's the easiest way I know. It's the easiest way I know. The next benefit is you get to start investing in real estate without having to do rehabs. You don't have to do renovations. You don't have to manage construction crews. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. But for me, that was huge. I didn't know how to look at a property correctly. Now, you're going to want to get your rehab numbers right, and you're going to want to learn. But it's not on you. It's on your end buyer. And your end buyer is looking for opportunities, and they know how to do it. So they can educate you even through the process. You don't need a whole bunch of money to get started, right? This course is free that you're jumping into right now. You don't need a whole bunch of money to get started. You need grit. You need a little bit of courage. You need to put yourself out there. You need to test. You need to take some action, right? It costs energy, right? You got to get out there. You got to talk to people. You got to negotiate. You got to have a little bit of knowledge that you're getting here, and you got to work the deal, but you don't need any capital, right? You don't need a whole bunch of money. And one deal give you an extra $10,000. It could change your life, right? One deal can completely radically change your life, whether it's your mindset or your financial life, right? Whether you have a credit card, whether you just need some extra money, whether you're struggling, whatever that is, or it's just setting you on a path to the freedom you want, right? To a vacation you want to go on to, whatever that looks like. You don't need a whole bunch of capital. You don't need $50,000 to buy a house, okay? You need the intent that you want to do this property and that you want to accomplish this. We're going to talk about that later. But you don't need a whole bunch of capital. There's a whole bunch of investors out there that will lend you the money, okay? There's people that will lend you short-term money, long-term money. There's lenders called hard money lenders who will put it out there. People love real estate. And if you have a deal and you found one, people will partner with you and bring the money to the table. It provides a doorway. As you're learning to real estate with little risk, it provides a doorway. You walk through this doorway, and we're going to get into the big picture, but it walks into this doorway of other strategies. You're going to learn what it looks like to fix and flip. You're going to learn what it looks like to hold properties as a rental. You're going to learn what subject to owner financing is. You're going to learn what does it look like to buy a commercial building. That might sound crazy right now, but you're going to learn how to do that. And this is going to be the roadmap, right? Let's say you're working a job, you do this part-time, you make an extra $100,000 a year. Well, as you're networking, you're connecting with people here in the Inner Forge, a guy comes to you and says, hey, I've got a mobile home park and I need $62,000. You want to come in and buy this mobile home park with me? All of a sudden you get control of a $1.2 million deal, and boom, you're in a big deal that over the next 3 years can change the trajectory of your life and give you real wealth, right? The payout might be 800,000, might be 2 million, all because you learned a skill called wholesaling. And it opened up this doorway as you were providing value. And then you met somebody through your network, through the inner forge, maybe not. And then all of a sudden it changed your life. It's a doorway. Guys, it's a doorway, and it opens up so many opportunities. You can do it part-time or full-time. I said that. The other thing is that this is very attractive to people. When you start talking about, I'm in real estate, everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody wants to be your friend. So as you start saying that, it's super sexy, guys. Like, people want to talk about it. People want to discuss it. People want to talk to you. You will find that you're talking about work more than ever before because people want to hear more. They know that real estate provides freedom. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't do what you did. They didn't take action. They didn't spend the time learning. They didn't watch hours worth of videos to get the knowledge. Remember what we said it takes? It takes knowledge, it takes a network, and it takes getting in front of and finding houses. It takes leads. And right now you're taking action to learn the knowledge so that way you can build the network and get in front of houses to change your life. Most people won't do that. You're doing what most people won't do. But you know what? They like to talk about it. They like to think about it. They like to be around the people who are successful. And you're going to be that person. And so it's super, super attractive to other people to talk. And you know what? You might be able to raise money, provide opportunities, and be one of the most valuable people in your community. And then lastly, you get your time back. You get your time back. When you're ready, you get to choose what you do with your time because you have the money. I like to say money is like air. You don't realize it's around until you don't have any. But once you have air, you have options. And when you have options, you can pick the life you want. And so you get your time back and you don't have to take a pay cut. You get your time back and you get to have a pay raise. And so now you get to sit down and you get to choose the direction you really, really want to go. So this is what it looks like, guys. We talked about assignments. We talked about double close. And we talked about wholesaling. Okay. So here's an example. I bought a deal in Dallas, Texas. I lived there for a number of years. I bought a deal in Dallas, Texas. It was on Buckner Avenue. It was over in Casa Linda is the area that it was. It was an inheritance deal. The seller had inherited the property. I went in, I was analyzing the property, and I negotiated with her, and we picked it up for $202,000. They lived about an hour away. And she wanted to sell it. She wanted to sell quick. She wanted to close. Really, she wanted to close in less than 20 days. It was a very, very fast transaction. So we agreed at $202,000. My disposition guy at the time, I had a guy on my team. He called one of our buyers. The buyer came out. He made us an offer for $305,000. Okay. I have a contract for $202,000. He made an offer for $305,000. We sent it to the title company. We double closed it. Okay. In this case, I actually brought in a transactional funder, like I mentioned. We paid a few $1,000. We closed the transaction. And guys, we netted about $98,000 after fees and everything. We netted $98,000. This is my biggest deal of all time. It happened in 25 days, $95,000, because I was willing to jump on the phone, talk to the seller, learn a strategy, and I had the network. I called this guy up. Now, it wouldn't have mattered if we didn't know him. We could have just put it out there. Hey, I have a property for sale. Anybody interested? Guys, so many people want properties. We put it out and we made, like I said, it was like 98,000. If you wanted to say the gross, it was 102. But after fees and everything, it was $98,000. Guys, what would $98,000 do for you? If you were to jump in, you were to do a deal, what would $20,000? What would $5,000? If you put in the effort and you put in the strategy, that's what wholesaling is going to do for you. And so go back, rewatch this, learn the strategy, learn the techniques. We're going to get into some more of the techniques for finding deals and things in the future. But guys, really dive in, get those benefits inside of us. And next, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the mindset you need to succeed in this business. We're going to talk about the big picture of the business, the mindset you have to lay a foundation so you don't end up in the graveyard of people who want to get into real estate investment, so you can succeed. And so that's what we're going to talk about next. But guys, go over this, learn the strategy, know that it is possible. Start getting out there and talking to people and connect with people here in the Inner Forge. And guys, let this be the first day to the rest of your life.